Mental health is at the forefront of so many conversations these days. But for members of the military, it has long been a hidden wound of war.
Yeah, studies suggest nearly a third of those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan received a mental health diagnosis. And Carson, one retired staff sergeant shared his powerful story with you.
Yeah, it is very powerful. Headstrong's great. It's a nonprofit that helps post 9/11 veterans like Spencer Milo. And I recently caught up with him at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum.
My grandfather was on the USS Sunfish, and I've got his battle flag actually tattooed on my back. But
That's amazing. I have my grandfather's Green Beret tattoo right here.
So proud of our grandfather's greatest generation and also of retired Sergeant Milo, who's now helping future generations with his incredible story.
Inspired by both of his grandparents who served in World War II, Spencer Milo joined the Army at age 21, rising to Staff Sergeant. His first tour, Iraq.
You're in Iraq on a 16-month tour in 2008, and you're injured, escaping enemy combat.
I was in our lead truck up in the turret, lead gunner. We were trying to get out of a situation, and we hit this basically a wall, more or less. We got back and went to the med shed, and they said, oh, well, yeah, you mean you bonked your head, but like, you're going to be all right.
It was the middle of the surge in Iraq. Milo was back on the front lines the next morning. Severe headaches began and never seemed to subside.
The headaches that I was having, the irritability, the anxiety, the lack of sleep, sensitivity to noise and light and things. Like, I just assumed it was like, well, I'm at war.
How much time went by where you were basically being told, like, rub some dirt on it, if you will, get back out there, and then when you realized something serious was happening?
Probably 10 to 11 months.
Wow, almost a year.
Nearly 1 year after the head injury in Iraq, a doctor delivered devastating news.
Well, when you hit your head, it created a tumor, and yeah, you've got 6 months to live. Finally, my family was like, we need a second opinion.
Milo was misdiagnosed. He didn't have a brain tumor. He wasn't dying. But his traumatic brain injury impacted his memory. Even getting married was a complete blur.
The craziest thing about this is, so during that time frame, and I don't remember this, I asked my wife to marry me.
You did.
And we got married. I have zero recollection of either of those events.
In 2010, 4 months after finding out he received the wrong diagnosis, Milo was redeployed, this time to Afghanistan.
Now, why did you go back to theater, back to serve in Afghanistan after all the trauma of Iraq?
People were still dying over there, and I need to go do what I can do to help.
You're in Afghanistan, you're on the Pakistan border, and you get injured again?
January 19th, 2011, we were in Spin Boldak. It's right on the Pakistan border. There was a child suicide bomber maybe 5 feet further away than you and I are, detonated himself. I think the thing that I remember most is the look on his face, and it's one of the few things that really haunts me is emotionless. I mean, it's just blank.
So no one in your platoon was killed?
No, we got really lucky that no one died. The vest was actually inside out, which is why we're still here. When I landed, I messed my back up pretty good and lost some hearing, which is why I've got robot ears now. And
what are robot ears?
That's my hearing aids. I call them robot ears.
Can you turn them up and down,
yeah,
like when your wife's yelling at you?
Yeah, I can't tell you that on TV. Come on now, I can't.
It's been a long road. Milo came home struggling with post-traumatic stress from combat and was in severe pain from his injuries.
I mean, you have physical wounds, but do you feel like you were experiencing a lot of invisible wounds? What was your mental health state?
I was definitely depressed, and the military is really good at training us to be resilient. Like you said earlier, rub dirt on it and move forward. I was self-medicating, I was drinking excessively.
His wife, Sarah, was pregnant with their daughter, Zoe. Milo says he made a life-changing decision to get help at Walter Reed's Brain Injury Treatment Center in Bethesda.
I made an internal decision. If this program works, wonderful, and if it doesn't, I'm taking myself out of the equation.
Meaning you're going to take your own life?
Yeah, it was miserable. I mean, not wanting to be here anymore is a horrible feeling.
Because of his physical injuries, Milo had to medically retire from the military, adding to his mental health struggles. For help, he turned to Headstrong, a nonprofit that since 2012 has provided nearly 70,000 hours of free therapy to veterans across the country.
I was in therapy, and it went from where I felt like I was in a crisis to being more normal. Some of those really horrible thoughts kept coming back into my head, and I just felt like, why am I still here? I don't ever want to go back to feeling like that again.
Right.
You know, I get asked a lot, did Headstrong save your life? It gives me the tools to make sure that I never feel like I don't want to be on this earth again.
He says everything changed when his daughter Zoe was born on Memorial Day weekend.
The first thing that happened to save my life was Zoe being born into this world. She reaches up and grabs my finger.
And he just melted. It just got through to him in a way that I have never seen before.
After Zoe came Gunnar, and in 2019, he made it up to Sarah and surprised her by proposing for a second time at a Headstrong charity event where he was being honored.
I'm like that hopeless romantic type. I got to find something we're both going to remember.
He turns around and I see him just getting down on one knee. It was just a whirlwind. It's a moment I will never, ever forget.
Milo now advocates for veterans with brain injuries, treating both their physical and emotional scars. His powerful message, an example for so many others who are struggling.
I tell folks, look, you're going to fall down again at some point, but now you know how to get up. You're not alone. It's never above you, never below you, always with you. Yeah, it's in my jacket.
Oh my God, it is.
I will tell every single veteran out there, every single non-veteran, you're not alone. You're not.
Spencer Milo is also a Purple Heart recipient. He was featured in President George W. Bush's Portraits of Courage book. He stressed that a big part of getting veterans the help that they need, it's not really just about treatment when you're in crisis, but it's the ongoing work to maintain it. And that's where Headstrong comes in and is so important. And I hope my friend, great director Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg were watching that story, because it plays out like a Hollywood movie, Spencer story. So maybe that'll be on the big screen.
It said never above, never below, always with.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's great.
I also want to mention that NBC News executive in charge of today is also on the board of Headstrong, and we were talking about all the great things they do for vets. And if you'd like to learn more about it, you or a loved one, we encourage you to check it out at today.com.
That was a great story, man.
Good conversation, Carson. Thank you.